Tonight's main story, we talk to the wife and mother of two of the British victims of the Titan sub-disaster last week. Suleiman Dawood, who was 19, and his father, Shahzada Dawood, was 48, were on the doomed mission to view the wreck of the Titanic.
Shahzada was so excited to go down. He was like a little child.
Was that a lifelong dream of his to do?
Yes, absolutely.
We'll have more of that exclusive interview with Christine Dawood, who was meant to be on the mission herself. Also tonight, the mercenary soldiers who were challenging President Putin's authority yesterday have today been withdrawing from their positions.
And I'll be live here in Kyiv as we assess how events in Russia in the last couple of days will affect the progress of the war here in Ukraine.
And a vast crowd at Glastonbury enjoying every note of Sir Elton's last live concert in the UK. Good evening. We start tonight with an exclusive interview with the wife and mother of two of the British passengers who were lost in the Titan sub-disaster in the North Atlantic last week. The submersible was on its way to view the wreck of the Titanic when contact was lost and the vessel subsequently imploded. Christine Dawood, the mother of 19-year-old Suleiman Dawood, the wife of Shahzada Dawood, was aboard the Polar Prince, which was supervising the mission. She's told the BBC that her initial intention was to go on the trip herself, but she gave the spot to her son because he was so excited by the prospect. She's been speaking exclusively to the BBC's Nomia Iqbal in St John's, Newfoundland, where the expedition had set off. And we can join Nomia there tonight.
Huw, as you said there, it's been a week since that Titan was launched, when it went missing, launching this huge search and rescue operation. Earlier today, funeral prayers were held for Shahzada and Suleiman here in St John's, but also for the other men that perished as well. And Christine wanted to talk to us, wanted us to know more about her husband and son. She was on the vessel when the Titan was launched, and she was also involved in helping in the search for her husband and son.
The sentence, "we lost comm," I think that would be a sentence I would never want to hear in my life again. Like lost comm, as in we lost communication.
Were you aboard the vessel? Were you here?
Yes, I was on board the vessel. I was on the ship. I think I lost hope when we passed the 96 hours mark. That's when I lost hope. And that's when I even then sent a message to my family on shore. I said, I'm preparing for the worst. That's when I lost hope. But my daughter, for example, she didn't lose hope until the call with the Coast Guard, when they basically informed us that they found debris.
Tell me just some memories that you have of your boy.
So he would not go anywhere without his Rubik's Cube. So he used to teach himself through YouTube how to solve the Rubik's Cube, and he was really fast at it. I think his best was 12 seconds or something like that.
What were your last moments or words that you shared with your husband and son? Do you remember that?
Well, we just hugged and joked, actually, because Shahzada was so excited to go down. He was like a little child.
Was that a lifelong dream of his to do?
Yes, absolutely. He had this ability of childlike excitement. So they both were so excited.
And how did Mum feel about it, or were you excited as well?
I was really happy for them, because both of them, they really, really wanted to do that for a very long time. So it was supposed to be Shahzada and I going down. But then I stepped back and gave the space to Suleiman because he really wanted to go.
This, again, seems like a really difficult question to ask, but how do you begin to get closure? If that's even possible.
Is there such a thing? I don't know. I think he started so many amazing projects. He was involved in so many, he helped so many people, and I think Aline and I really want to continue that legacy.
Is there anything else you want to add, Christine?
That I miss them. That I really, really miss them. Yeah.
Huw, Christine and the family sent me a video of Suleiman with his Rubik's Cube, and it was really impressive. He did manage to solve it in 20 seconds, and Christine said to me that he had hoped to solve it underwater near the Titanic wreck. That was his dream, and she was really emphasising to me, and it was important, she said, for people to know that, you know, he wanted to go, he was excited about going. She couldn't answer any of the questions about investigations that, you know, we know there are investigations happening. She can't comment on them. There are a few, including one by the police of Canada, just to, you know, they want to find out exactly what happened here a week ago.
Nomia, thank you so much. Nomia Iqbal there, our North America correspondent, after that exclusive interview with Christine Daoud. Now, after a weekend of turmoil and uncertainty in Russia, there are more questions than ever about the authority of President Putin and the damage to his standing both at home and overseas. Following yesterday's attempted military rebellion by an army of mercenary soldiers known as the Wagner Group, Mr. Putin's handling of the conflict in Ukraine is once again in the spotlight. The Biden administration has intervened, with the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, saying that the events of yesterday were evidence, as he put it, of the cracks in Mr. Putin's authority. President Putin hasn't been seen today, nor has the Wagner Group leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who's promised to leave Russia and move to Belarus. Our Russia editor, Steve Rosenberg, has the latest.
Leaving as heroes. The Wagner fighters pulling out of Rostov last night. You'd think they'd just won a war. The leader of the mercenary group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, was off too. He'd just done a deal with the Kremlin to end their mutiny. The rebellion started here, then spread north. It was the biggest challenge to Vladimir Putin's authority since he came to power.
Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin.
Russia's commander-in-chief likes to project an image of strength. A mutiny on his watch is embarrassing. But is it damaging? For Vladimir Putin, will there be political fallout ahead of next year's election?
He definitely looks weaker. All elite groups will begin to think about the presidency 2024. Should they rely, as they did even 1 week before this military coup, on Vladimir Putin? Or should they think about someone new?
But there's no sign yet that someone new in the Kremlin is Mr. Putin's plan.
Vladimir Putin is determined to show that he is in charge, in control in the Kremlin. And he has the Russian state media to help him paint that picture. The trouble is, the dramatic events of the last couple of days have raised questions about how in control the Russian authorities are of the situation here.
Instability. Russians can feel it. The rebel Wagner fighters may not have made it to Moscow, but people here were watching nervously and waiting. I'm a mother with 3 children, Anna tells me. Of course I'm terrified by what has happened. We were scared these events would spread to Moscow, Nastya says. There's nothing ordinary citizens can do to influence the situation. It's decided above our heads. Many Russians tell me that. They don't believe they have the power to change what is happening in their country, to make their voices heard, to turn things around. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, Moscow.
Well, as we were saying, the turmoil of the weekend in Russia has led to more questions about the future of President Putin, the damage done to his standing at home and abroad, and questions too about the impact on Russia's approach to the conflict in Ukraine. Our analysis editor, Ros Atkins, has been weighing up the key factors.
The Wagner Group's mutiny is over, but its consequences are not. Let's look at 5 dimensions of this story. First, there's Yevgeny Prigozhin. On Saturday morning, he said his Wagner forces would march to Moscow. By Saturday night, his destination had changed to Belarus. According to the Kremlin, treason charges against him would be dropped, but Prigozhin was going into exile. A major player in the war appears to be leaving the battlefield and leaving Russia too. Which takes us to the second impact, on Wagner itself. It's a mercenary group that's outside of the Russian military, but has been fighting for Russia in Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry has plans to centralize control of irregular forces like Wagner, something Prigozhin opposed. Wagner will not sign any contracts, he declared. But his mutiny failed to stop the plans. And that means Wagner, in its current form, is coming to an end, which connects to our third issue, Russia's military leadership and Prigozhin's determination to change it.
Shoigu! Gerasimov!
That was in May. Sergei Shoigu is Russia's defense minister. Valery Gerasimov is the chief of the general staff, and Prigozhin has repeatedly attacked them both for problems on the battlefield. On Saturday, he urged Russians to join the conflict against the defense ministry. That didn't happen. And when the Kremlin was asked about Shoigu's position, its spokesperson said, "I'm not aware of any changes in this regard," which could mean a number of things. For now, Shoigu keeps his job. He's gaining Wagner fighters, gaining more control. But as he and Putin know, the struggles of the Russian military have not gone away. And our fourth consideration is the president himself. On Saturday, he went on national TV accusing Prigozhin of treason. But having to address a mutiny by a mercenary force that he's backed is unlikely to have been on Putin's list of things to do. Nor would have been Moscow having to prepare in case Wagner arrived. And watching on is the US.
So I think this is clearly, we see cracks emerging. Where they go, if anywhere, when they get there, very hard to say. I don't want to speculate on it.
It is very hard to say. But Putin has been under pressure as rarely seen before. That happened connects to our fifth issue, the state of the war. Because Putin brought in Wagner to give Russia momentum in Ukraine, but territorial gains have proved elusive. And now, as once again Putin tries to address that, a mutiny led by someone who was a key figure in Russia's operation in Ukraine would appear unlikely to help.
Well, that was Ros Atkins there, our analysis editor. Jeremy Bowen, our international editor, has just arrived in Kyiv. We can talk to him now. Jeremy, after this turbulent weekend, how do you read the impact of these events on the conflict there?
Well, President Zelensky of Ukraine has been talking to the Americans, he's been talking to Joe Biden, but, Huw, you do not need top-rated US intelligence to see the damage that has been done to President Putin and to his regime. Now, that doesn't necessarily instantly translate into progress on the battlefield. The Ukrainians have said they've captured a few more villages, but they are not saying that they've even committed their main force yet. These are still, they say, probing attacks, and it'll take more than the undoubted boost to morale that their soldiers will be getting because of all of this mess in Russia to overcome those very highly developed Russian defenses that they've spent months working on. Now, what about the rest of the world? And a lot of it, of course, will continue to be pretty neutral about what's going on here because they feel this isn't their fight. But for the Ukrainians, and of course of NATO and its Western allies who are committed to backing Ukraine, it's something very different now. I think they have to start thinking very clearly and strongly about what happens when Putin eventually goes. We don't know when that might be, but clearly it's going to happen. And the evidence of the last couple of days has been that when the succession does happen, it may not be easy, and that Russia may stay brittle, fragile, dangerous, angry for quite some time. So they need to be ready for that.
Jeremy, many thanks once again. Jeremy Bowen there in Kyiv, our international editor. Well, let's take a look then at some of the other stories making the news today. People across England, Scotland and Wales were unable to call 999 for around 2 hours this morning after a technical fault forced people to use the alternative 101 to get help. BT, which manages the service, says the glitch has been resolved. The Duchess of York is recuperating with her family following an operation for breast cancer. Sarah Ferguson, who was married to Prince Andrew, was diagnosed after a routine mammogram screening, and a spokesman said that she'd been told by the doctors that the prognosis was good. Hikers in Southern California have found human remains near the spot where the British actor Julian Sands went missing 5 months ago. The remains have been taken to a coroner's office to be identified. Now, the Greek authorities say that the recovery operation for a migrant boat that sank almost 2 weeks ago has now ended. But they're facing new allegations about failing to help people on board. The heavily overcrowded fishing boat had set out from Libya and went down around 50 miles southwest of Pylos, which is a town on the southwest coastline of Greece. It is thought that around 500 people lost their lives. The UN can only confirm that there are 104 survivors, and the BBC has now heard evidence from several of them who accused the Greek Coast Guard of sailing away from the boat when it was clearly in serious difficulty. Our correspondent Khalid Karamat from the BBC's Urdu service has the story.
This boat left Libya with around 700 people on board. More than half were Pakistanis. This is Hasibur Rahman before he made this perilous trip. Just one of the 12 Pakistani men who survived. In Athens, I spoke to him via video call from a Greek detention centre. He told me he was thrown into the water and clambered back onto the sinking vessel.
I was in the water for an hour. I swam to the ship as it was far away. They had to put a speedboat and were rescuing, but had gone far away.
I tracked down another survivor, Mohammed Hamza. His testimony contradicts the Greek authorities' account that the migrants refused assistance. He said the boat's engine had failed, it hadn't moved for hours before it sank, and their cries for help were ignored.
The ship that came at night, we were telling them we don't want food or water. Just rescue us. We were screaming, help, help.
This neighborhood has a large, thriving migrant community, including a large Pakistani diaspora. The street could easily be confused for one in Pakistan. And it is here that Pakistanis from all over Europe are coming, looking for information, any clue, anything that can help them find their loved ones.
Zubair Butt is looking for teenager Syed Ali Nadeem. He told me of huge sums his family had paid to send Nadeem to Europe.
The agent has taken 2.5 million rupees and isn't answering calls now. The mother is really worried, and so is the father. The boy is only 15 years.
For families searching for their missing relatives, there is little hope left. Meanwhile, the Greek authorities have rejected claims they didn't act quickly enough to the unfolding tragedy, insisting those on board told Coast Guards they wanted to be left alone so they could travel to Italy. But the survivors' testimonies continued to cast doubt on that version of events. Khalid Karamat, BBC News, Athens.
Let's turn to the Glastonbury Festival. They started queuing at 4 o'clock this morning for the show to end all shows, Sir Elton John's final live date in the UK. He'd already declared that there couldn't be a more perfect ending to his touring career, with what he said was a brand new show for this year's festival. So on a perfect summer's evening in Somerset, a huge army of Sir Elton's fans had gathered. as our culture editor Katie Razzle reports.
Spectacular from the very start, and opening with a song he hadn't performed live in 10 years.
It's what the weekend has been building towards. Elton John on the Pyramid stage for the final UK date of his farewell tour. The crowds are stretching way into the distance, and people further in have been here since this morning.
It was all about claiming a spot near the front and paying tribute to a performer with a love of flamboyant outfits, a rocket man who, before tonight, had never performed at Glastonbury. The crowds grew through the day, wowed first by Sophie Ellis-Bextor, then later Blondie and Lil Nas X.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna...
And guessing games went on to fill the long hours. What song would Elton John kick off with? And what special guests would he bring on? One of them was Jacob Lusk from Gabriel's, a band championed by Elton. Backstage earlier, it was clear the feeling is mutual.
He wears the most incredible outfits. His voice is bigger than life. The way that he tickles those keys with his fingers is like none I've ever seen live, ever. And I think there's something about his music that speaks to the soul.
Elton's other guests included The Killer's Brandon Flowers. But tonight was less about those surprises and more about one man and his incredible back catalogue.
How are you enjoying the music?
I think he's wonderful, and God love him. He's one of the old ones, and us old ones rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, rocks.
I mean, I've always loved all of his songs. I love that you can just like blast out, sing along, and it's just iconic, isn't it? It's like so special to be here.
It might be the last time we ever see him performing live.
You're going to make me cry. I can't even believe I'm here watching him at Glastonbury. Mwah.
Elton delivered hit after hit, and a grand finale that took us from a farm in Somerset right up into space.
Elton gave us fireworks, he gave us spectacle. Yes, the rumours that Eminem or Britney Spears would join him on the stage were just rumours, but Elton, the showman, delivered. And I have never seen this place so packed. The crowds have been streaming out of here for more than 20 minutes now. Because this festival is over for another year, at least in terms of music on the stages, the parties will go on across this vast site through the night. And tomorrow we'll wake up, pack up, head home, just a little bit overtired, but full of music in our hearts. Huw.
Katie, we all love Sir Elton. Thank you very much indeed, Katie Razzle there at Glastonbury. It's just about coming up to 11:30, and Tomasz is with me with the weather. Hi, Tomasz.
It is very late, Huw, isn't it? And no rain in Glastonbury. That's some good news. Now, it was a really hot day for some of us today. In Lincolnshire, Coningsby, 32.2 degrees Celsius, but just to the north, across many parts of northern Britain and Ireland, we had storms rumbling through. You can see that weather front crossing the country earlier on. The storms have now mostly died away, and the weather front is out to sea. And then behind it, the skies are starting to clear, and it's nowhere near as muggy as close as it was last night. So just a few showers around through the early hours of Monday morning. The sun will soon be up, and the temperatures first thing in London around 15 degrees, 14 for Liverpool, and in the Glens of Scotland, probably below 10 degrees Celsius. Little fresh start to the day. Tomorrow, sunshine from the word go, and then a few showers will develop. Most of the showers will be across the northern 2/3 of the UK, and very pleasant temperatures. 19 in Belfast, Hull 21, in London around 23 degrees Celsius or so. The next weather system comes in on Tuesday. It's quite a broad weather system, a lot of cloud, and ahead of it, it's also pushing in plenty of humidity towards us. So despite the cloud and lack of sunshine, it is actually going to feel quite close, quite muggy on Tuesday. Those temperatures will be around 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. And you can see where the rain is across northern parts of the UK, northern 2/3. Now, I want to show you how much rainfall we are going to get through the course of the week. This is the jet stream I've overlaid here. You can see most of the rain across more northwestern parts of the UK. Not too much rain down here until the end of the week, we think. I think in the south, the rain's a little bit more uncertain. So here's the outlook for the week at a glance. is actually typical British summer. Back to you.
OK, Thomas, thank you very much once again. That's all from us tonight, a bit later than usual. Plenty more, of course, for you on BBC News Online. But from now, from Thomas and me and all of the 10 team, thanks for watching and good night.